So, Wes Anderson has a new film out. It's called The Phoenician Scheme, and, well, it's a Wes Anderson movie. You know what I'm talking about. Meticulous, symmetrical framing, deadpan line delivery, emotionally repressed characters, absent parents, dysfunctional families. Incredibly famous actors appearing for like 2 lines of dialogue, zooms, whip pans, wide-angle tracking shots, colour palettes that look like they were handpicked by a vintage wallpaper company, and that unmistakable feeling that you're watching a cozy but slightly awkward adult storybook come to life. This guy is one of those few directors whose style is so idiosyncratic, so unique, that he's basically his own genre at this point. You can show any film fan any random frame from one of his movies, and they'll instantly be able to tell you, yep, that's Wes Anderson. And look, while he isn't personally one of my all-time favourite directors, I don't think there's many filmmakers out there who are more inspiring in terms of artistic integrity, in terms of sticking to your own personal creative vision every step of the way. Wes Anderson's work is so unapologetically Wes Anderson that watching one of his movies is like looking straight into the man's soul, seeing the world exactly as he does. And that is simply awesome. That's arguably why art exists in the first place. And look, when it comes to the Phoenician Scheme, I had a blast. No, I didn't really understand what was going on, but let's face it, the plots of Anderson's movies have always been secondary. What I loved was the cinematography, the dialogue, the characters, the humour, the costumes, the music, the set design, the pace of which it moved. The performances, especially from Michael Cera, Richard Ayoade, and relative newcomer Mia Threepleton, who all just feel like they were born to act in Wes Anderson movies. Overall, I had a great time. It was great. It was really, really great. However, I can't be the only one who thinks that Wes Anderson has just gotten a tiny bit complacent in recent years. I mean, the guy's movies used to be events. The Grand Budapest Hotel, for example, was huge. Massive critical acclaim, tons of Oscar nominations if you care about that stuff. Everyone and their mum was talking about it. And of course they were. It was a brilliant film, a perfect distillation of everything wonderful about Wes Anderson and his also unique brand of storytelling. But since then, I don't know man, his films just seem to come and go with little fuss outside his own circle of dedicated fans. And again, I must preface, I'm not saying that movies such as The French Dispatch and The Phoenician Scheme aren't enjoyable, aren't creative, because they are. They're actually really solid pieces of work. It's just that at this point in Wes Anderson's career, I feel like he can make these types of films in his sleep. The formula has been perfected, and now he's just churning them out. Like sure, he'll play around with a few new techniques with every new release, maybe a different aspect ratio or some new bit of narrative framing. And yeah, he'll add a few more perfectly cast actors to his ever-growing roster of canonical Wes Anderson people. Like he's assembling some kind of pastel-coloured, emotionally distant Avengers. But that's about it. It's never enough to change the core experience. It all still feels safely within his comfort zone. You know, the same tone, the same stylistic blueprint, the same thematic structure, just rearranged slightly each time. And I guess there's just a part of me who thinks that he's capable of more. Like, for example, imagine if the Beatles, after releasing Rubber Soul, had just gone, well, alright lads, we got a really good formula here, let's just keep it going. Like, don't get me wrong, I would have absolutely been okay if we'd gotten 7 more Rubber Souls. Just like I would be absolutely okay if we got 7 more Asteroid Cities, 7 more Phoenician Schemes. Again, these movies are still enjoyable. In fact, I don't think the guy has a bad film across his entire body of work. But, I don't know man, when it comes to Wes Anderson, this incredibly creative and talented filmmaking auteur, a guy with the world at his feet, with the ability to attract basically any actor on the planet to his cause, I want to see his Revolver, I want to see his Sgt. Pepper, I want to see his White Album. I want to see him evolve just a tiny bit more than he has since The Grand Budapest Hotel, which is not only his best film in my opinion, but a piece of work I don't think he'll be able to improve upon if he remains in the current box he's built for himself. And here's the thing, I'm not saying that he's got to ditch the symmetry, ditch the quirkiness, stop casting Jason Schwartzman and Bill Murray and Owen Wilson. Of course not. I'm not saying he's got to go completely out of his way to rip up his formula and start anew just for the sake of surprising people and subverting expectations. But the guy is 56 now, and I guess I just think it would be a shame if he got to the end of his career without ever branching out into a new direction, trying something a bit different, pushing his boundaries and seeing what else he could come up with. I mean, let's look at another director known for a very specific style, David Lynch. Yes, the guy is, or was should I say, mainly known for his surreal, dream logic, Lynchian stuff, funnily enough. You know, Blue Velvet, Inland Empire, Mulholland Drive, Twin Peaks. Yet, he also found time in his career to make a G-rated road movie about an old man driving a lawnmower across the American Midwest, produced by Disney, and an adaptation of Frank Herbert's Dune. Now look, this isn't me saying that Wes Anderson should go direct a Star Wars movie or whatever, of course not. If you really want to see that, you can just go on YouTube and watch those bizarre, Uncanny Valley AI trailers.
The Galactic Menagerie. Join this ragtag crew of unlikely heroes as they navigate the absurdity of the cosmos, challenge the Empire, and redefine what it means to be a rebel.
My point is that even a director as stylistically specific as Lynch allowed himself a little creative drift, a little room to experiment. And maybe that's what's missing from Anderson right now. Maybe the guy just needs to go do something different, even if it just ends up being a temporary departure from his usual stuff. Not for the sake of novelty, but because evolution, getting out of your comfort zone, well, that's what keeps artists sharp. So, to wrap things up, does Wes Anderson need to change his formula? No, he doesn't need to change anything. I really enjoyed The Phoenician Scheme, and he could absolutely continue to make his very specific brand of intricate, whimsical, quirky stories. You know, hour 30, hour 40 minutes long, maybe do another set of short films for Netflix, and I don't think anyone would have any complaints. He would still go down as one of the best and certainly one of the most unique directors of his generation, with a charming, beautifully crafted, and incredibly consistent body of work. However, I personally think it would be just the slightest shame if someone as brilliant as Wes Anderson stayed within this comfort zone he has created for himself for the rest of his career. And look, maybe people will disagree with me here, especially Wes Anderson purists, but I would honestly just say if you're half as quirky as you claim to be, aren't you just the least bit intrigued by what else this guy could do? I know I am, but either way, the guy's a great filmmaker, and I'll for sure be watching whatever he conjures up next in his lab of symmetry and awkwardness. But that's gonna be it for now. Please let me know what you think in the comments section. Has Wes Anderson found himself in the slightest mid-career rut? Does he need to get out of his comfort zone just a tiny bit more and evolve? Or am I overthinking things? Should I just be grateful that someone out there in this modern cinema landscape is still making films this distinctive, this handmade, this unapologetically weird? Either way, I want to thank you for watching. I hope you have a great day. Looking forward to seeing the discussion in the comments section, and I will see you in the next one.